So are you ready to dive back into some history with us today? Because we're going to be talking about some pretty major events, some really big assassinations that people still talk about, even today. JFK, RFK, MLK.
Yeah, you're right. These cases really seem to just capture the imagination, don't they? And now that President Trump is back in office, things have just gotten a lot more interesting in this whole area.
Oh, how so? What's changed now?
Well, remember, during his campaign, he promised he would declassify all of those assassination records.
Yeah.
Well, he just followed through on that. He just issued an executive order to do just that.
An entire executive order just for these files.
Really?
It's a big deal. Yeah.
Wow. So what does it say?
Well, an executive order, for those who don't know, is a direct instruction from the president.
Okay.
And it carries quite a bit of weight. This particular executive order lays out a pretty clear plan to finally make all of those secret files public. It even mentions providing Americans the truth and ending all the delays that have happened with these files. Okay, I get it. This is big news, but I really want to get into the details. What's the timeline? Like, when is all of this supposed to happen?
Yeah, well, Trump actually set some pretty tight deadlines.
Oh, really? Okay.
We're talking 15 days to come up with a plan for the JFK files.
Wow.
And just 45 days for both RFK and MLK.
So this has been a long time coming.
Definitely a long time coming.
Yeah.
Back in 1992, there was this thing called the JFK Records Act. Does that ring a bell at all?
Vaguely. Just vaguely. Remind me.
Sure. Basically, it was supposed to make all of the JFK files public within 25 years.
Okay.
So that would have been back in 1997.
Okay.
But there was this loophole.
Uh-oh.
There was this clause that said if releasing the information would cause identifiable harm, then the president could hold back certain information. And you can probably guess what happened.
Yeah. Every president since then has used it.
Exactly. Every single one.
So Biden held back information too.
He did.
Wow. That makes this move by Trump seem even more pointed.
It does, doesn't it? The White House fact sheet actually specifically calls out Biden for delaying the release in 2021, 2022, and 2023. So there's definitely a layer of political strategy going on here.
It does seem that way.
But hey, look, the point is now we're finally going to get to see what's behind the curtain.
Right.
Whatever the motivation.
I gotta admit, I'm getting kind of excited about the mystery of it all.
Yeah.
We already have a ton of information about JFK out there.
Right.
So what's the big deal with these last few files? Why are people still so obsessed with this case after all these years?
Well, it's the power of the unknown, isn't it? I mean, even though the official story says that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone,
Right.
there are still so many alternative theories floating around out there, like that there was a second shooter on the grassy knoll, or that the mafia was involved, or even the government itself.
It's wild.
Right. People want answers, and these missing files feel like they hold the key to getting those answers.
I think you're right. It says almost 4,700 JFK documents are still under wraps.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of potential secrets. What if there's something in there that completely changes what we thought we knew about JFK's assassination?
It's enough to make you want to grab a magnifying glass and start digging yourself, huh?
It really is.
But hold on, because this executive order doesn't just cover JFK.
Oh, that's right.
It also includes RFK and MLK's assassinations.
Okay, yeah, which adds like another whole layer of intrigue to this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because those cases have their own unanswered questions and their own controversies.
Absolutely. Take RFK, for instance. His son, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has been very outspoken about his belief that the CIA was actually involved in his father's death.
Wow.
That kind of claim coming from inside the family really adds fuel to the fire, doesn't it?
It does.
And it's not just him. You've got the King family who believes that James Earl Ray did not act alone in MLK's assassination.
Okay, so this isn't just about history. It's also about deeply personal beliefs and family legacies.
Yeah.
So is Trump just fulfilling a campaign promise here? Or is there something more going on? Why now?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
What we do know is that he has said he would release these files all the way back to 2024. There's actually an Al Jazeera article that quotes him saying he would do it early on if he got back into office.
So it really does seem like he is keeping his word. But you got to admit, the timing is interesting.
Yeah.
He's facing legal challenges to some of his other executive orders right now, like the one about birthright citizenship. Could this be a distraction?
I mean, you can't rule that out. This whole idea of draining the swamp and exposing the truth, it's a powerful narrative for Trump's base.
Yeah.
This could be a way for him to shift the focus and present himself as a champion of transparency, especially while he's facing pushback on other parts of his agenda.
So it's like a political chess move with these assassination files as his pawns.
It's a good way to put it. But, not everyone's thrilled about this decision. Some people are raising concerns about national security and the potential harm this could cause to ongoing investigations. There's been some pushback from intelligence agencies and law enforcement.
So it's not as simple as just opening up the vault and letting everyone see what's inside.
No, not at all. It's a delicate balancing act.
Okay.
There's the public's right to know, but then there's also the need to protect sensitive information. Ultimately, it will be up to Congress and the courts to decide how far this declassification can go and what safeguards need to be put in place.
So for those of us at home trying to follow along with this whole saga, what should we be paying attention to? What are the red flags that will tell us whether this is a genuine move towards transparency or just a political show?
Well, here's what I would watch out for. First,
Mm.
which documents are actually released and which ones are kept hidden? Are there any obvious omissions, huge chunks blacked out, that could tell us if they're still trying to bury something?
Right. And then we're also looking for those bombshells, right?
Of course.
Like a witness statement that no one has ever seen before or a connection that was missed previously, something that completely changes the story.
Exactly.
But, just because a document is released doesn't mean that it's going to be the smoking gun everyone's hoping for.
Right. We have to be careful not to jump to conclusions. We need to analyze all of the information we're given and figure out how it all fits into the bigger picture.
And remember, we're all part of this investigation now. We're all going to be looking at this information and trying to make sense of it.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so interesting. We're entering a new era of historical inquiry, one where everyone can participate. It's like crowdsourcing the truth. The more eyes we have on these files, the better chance we have of uncovering something truly significant.
Honestly, I'm already feeling a little overwhelmed.
Yeah.
There's so much information out there, even before these new files are released. How are we supposed to make sense of it all?
Don't worry, you're not alone in feeling that way. This is a complex and multi-layered story. It's easy to get lost in the weeds. That's why it's important to start with a solid foundation. Before we dive headfirst into these newly released documents, let's take a step back and remind ourselves of the basics.
Okay, so a little refresher course before the main event. I like it.
Yeah.
Where do we start? Yeah, it really does feel like we're about to jump down a rabbit hole. Like we're at the edge and about to jump in. I'm getting some Indiana Jones vibes here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that. But instead of a whip and a fedora, our tools are these executive orders and the deadlines and all the anticipation about what those files might actually say.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of adventure, I guess.
It is, but still thrilling nonetheless.
It is.
And think about it. We're not just talking about those physical files, right? Those files sitting in some dusty old archive somewhere. We're in the digital age now.
Yeah.
Who knows what kind of information might be tucked away on a server somewhere, just waiting to be unearthed.
That's a great point. This really is a whole new era of investigation.
Yeah.
We've got internet sleuths, historians with their magnifying glasses, maybe even AI analyzing these documents. This could really be a game changer.
So you're saying this is bigger than just history buffs. This could have real-world implications on how we understand everything.
Absolutely. These assassinations didn't happen in a vacuum. They helped shape American history.
Yeah.
They influenced the Civil Rights Movement, the Vietnam War, even the level of trust we have in our own government.
Wow.
Getting the full picture could really help us process those events and think about their impact, even today.
Okay, now my mind is really blown. What if things had gone differently? What if JFK, RFK, and MLK had lived? Would America even be the same country it is today?
Yeah, it's a fascinating thought experiment. We obviously can't rewrite history,
Right.
but we can learn from it.
True.
Maybe by looking deeper at these events, we can understand the dangers of things like extremism,
Yeah.
political polarization, the abuse of power, and maybe, just maybe, we can find ways to prevent similar tragedies from happening again.
I like that. I'm with you on that. But for now, let's not get too lost in the hypotheticals. Okay.
Yeah.
We started this conversation talking about Trump and his executive order and whether fulfilling a campaign promise was his only motivation.
Right. And remember, he has always presented himself as this outsider, someone who's willing to take on the establishment and expose its secrets. Releasing these files fits right into that image. It's like a classic David versus Goliath story.
Yeah.
And it resonates with a lot of people.
It does. But isn't it a bit convenient that all of this is happening right now with all these other controversies swirling around him?
It's definitely a strategic move.
Okay.
No question about it. By taking such bold action on an issue like this that everyone's been talking about for years, he can control the narrative a bit.
Right.
And it distracts from some of those other challenges he's facing, like the legal battles over some of his other executive orders.
So it's like those assassination files are his pawns in this big political chess game he's playing.
That's one way to look at it, yeah. But, we also have to remember that not everyone is thrilled about this decision. Some people are concerned about national security.
Right.
And the potential harm that this could do to some ongoing investigations. We've already seen pushback from intelligence agencies and law enforcement.
Okay. So it's not as simple as just throwing open the vault and letting everyone see what's inside.
Exactly. It's a very delicate balancing act.
Okay.
You have the public's right to know the truth, but then you also have the need to protect sensitive information. Ultimately, it'll be up to Congress and the courts to decide how far this declassification can go.
Right.
And what kind of safeguards need to be put in place.
Okay, so for those of us at home trying to follow along with all of this, what should we be paying attention to? What are the red flags? What are the things that will tell us if this is a genuine move towards transparency or just some kind of political theater?
Well, here's what I would say. Watch which documents are actually released and which ones they decide to hold back.
All right.
Are there any obvious omissions or big chunks blacked out? That might tell us they're still trying to bury something.
And then we're also looking for the bombshells, right?
Of course we are.
That witness statement no one has ever seen before, that connection that investigators missed previously, something that completely changes the story as we know it.
Right. But we should remember that just because a document is released doesn't mean it's going to be the smoking gun everyone's hoping for.
Right.
We need to be careful. We need to analyze the information. We need to look at how it all fits into the bigger picture. We can't just jump to conclusions.
Yeah, good point. We're all part of this investigation now. We're all going to be reading through these files and trying to make sense of it.
We are, and that's what's so exciting about it. We are really entering a whole new era of historical inquiry, one where everyone can participate. It's like we're all crowdsourcing the truth now, and the more eyes we have on these files, the better the chances are that we actually uncover something truly significant.
Yeah, that's true. I have to admit, though, I'm already feeling a little overwhelmed.
I know, it's a lot.
There's already so much information out there, even before these new files are released.
There is.
How are we supposed to make sense of it all?
Don't worry, you're not alone in feeling that way. This is a very complex story, a multi-layered story. It's easy to get lost in the weeds, and that's why it's so important to start with a solid foundation. Before we all just dive headfirst into these newly released documents, maybe we should take a step back and remind ourselves of some of the basics.
So a little refresher course before the main event. I like it. Where do we start? All right, so before we get too lost in the what-ifs and all the conspiracy theories out there, let's try to ground ourselves in the facts for a minute.
Yeah, good idea.
Just remind me, what are some of the big picture things we should be thinking about as we approach all of these new files?
Well, it's really easy to get swept up in the excitement.
It is.
But we have to remember that each of these assassinations happened in a specific context.
Right.
There are key players and there were official investigations. And brushing up on all of that background is really going to help you make sense of whatever new details might come out.
So basically, know your history.
Exactly.
Got it. What else? What else should we be thinking about?
Well, don't just rely on a single source or perspective.
Okay.
Look for different viewpoints. Compare different accounts. Look for gaps or inconsistencies. It's like putting a big puzzle together. Each piece, each source, each perspective adds to the bigger picture.
So be a critical thinker.
Yes.
Question everything.
Yes.
Don't take anything at face value.
Exactly.
Okay, I got it. But, we can't avoid the fact that part of what makes this so interesting is the potential for some huge bombshell revelation.
True.
What kind of impact could that have?
Well, imagine if a document surfaces that definitively proves there was a conspiracy in one of these cases. I mean, think about it. It wouldn't just change what's in our history textbooks. It could completely shatter the public's trust in the government.
Yeah, that's true.
We could be looking at a total shift in how we understand these events and their implications.
That is heavy stuff. But, it could also go the other way, right?
Yeah.
What if these new files actually confirm the official narrative?
That's a possibility, too. It might not be quite as exciting for the conspiracy theorists out there, but it could finally put some of those long-held doubts to rest.
Yeah, that's true.
Either way, no matter what happens, there's no doubt that the impact of these files will be significant.
Yeah. You know what? It almost feels like we're all kind of holding our breath collectively, waiting for a verdict in a trial that has been going on for decades.
I like that analogy, yeah. And who knows, maybe this will actually be the thing that leads to some sort of national reckoning, a chance for truth and reconciliation, a way for us to finally confront our past and then move forward together.
I like to be optimistic. I do.
Hmm.
But let's be real. This could also backfire, couldn't it?
It could.
These cases, they're so emotionally charged. People have invested so much in their beliefs about what happened. What if releasing these files just creates more division and distrust?
You're right. It's not a guaranteed happy ending. There is a real risk that no matter what is in these files, some people are never going to be satisfied.
Right.
It could just lead to more questions, more speculation, further entrenchment in those pre-existing beliefs. It really is a gamble.
So what you're saying is buckle up, everyone, because it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Pretty much, yeah. But even with all the uncertainty and the potential risks, remember, the quest for the truth is still important. Think about it. Even if we don't get all the answers, even if this just raises more questions than it answers, the very act of searching, of questioning, of engaging with our past, that has value in itself.
It reminds us that history isn't static.
Right.
It's not just dates and names in some textbook.
Right.
It's a living, breathing thing that continues to shape who we are today.
Absolutely. And we all have a role to play in that conversation. By learning about history, really wrestling with the complexities, and using what we learn to inform our present and our future, we all become active participants in shaping the narrative.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today, we want to leave you with this. What impact do you think these revelations could have? Will it bring us closer to the truth, or just fuel even more conspiracy theories? It's a question worth thinking about.
And remember, this is really just the beginning. We encourage you to look at the sources, do your own research, and come to your own conclusions.
And as the story unfolds, we're going to be right here with you every step of the way, unpacking all the twists and turns. Until then, keep those thinking caps on.